The morning sun, on an unspecified day in 1462, illuminated a grim scene on a hill overlooking the Argesh River in Wallachia. From atop Poenari fortress, a man with a dark beard and piercing eyes surveyed his handiwork with chilling satisfaction. Below, stretching for miles, thousands of sharpened wooden stakes pointed skyward. On each, a human body writhed in agony or hung lifeless, a macabre forest of death. The stench of decay and fear was overpowering, as flies swarmed and ravens fought over the decaying flesh. This was the infamous Forest of Stakes, the signature of Vlad III, Dracula, a ruler who would forever be known as Vlad the Impaler, Europe's most merciless prince. The screams of the dying echoed through the valley for days. Victims were impaled with gruesome precision, the stakes deliberately avoiding vital organs to prolong suffering. Ottoman ambassadors, Saxon nobles, and disobedient peasants all met the same horrific fate. When a large Turkish army, led by Sultan Mehmed II, approached and encountered this ghastly spectacle, they recoiled in sheer horror and withdrew. This was no mere act of cruelty. It was a calculated psychological demonstration of power, an unambiguous message to any who dared challenge Vlad's absolute authority. Betrayal carried an unimaginable price. How did a relatively minor ruler from a medieval Balkan principality transform into a byword for extreme cruelty, inspiring the literary world's most famous monster? To understand Vlad, we must delve into his tumultuous birth and the formative experiences that forged his terrifying character. Born in 1431 within the fortified citadel of Sighișoara, Transylvania, Vlad was the son of Vlad II Dracul, a Wallachian noble warrior and member of the prestigious Order of the Dragon. His infamous moniker, which would later give rise to the legend of Dracula, stemmed from his father's nickname, Dracul, meaning dragon or sometimes devil in Old Romanian. Young Vlad grew up in a profoundly turbulent era, witnessing the relentless expansion of the mighty Ottoman Empire across Eastern Europe. Small Christian principalities like Wallachia fought desperately to retain their fragile independence, caught between the encroaching Ottoman tide and the often unreliable protection of Catholic European powers like Hungary. The first profound trauma that shaped the young Vlad occurred when he was just 11 years old. In a desperate attempt to secure peace and maintain his throne, his father, Vlad II, sent Vlad and his younger brother, Radu the Handsome, as political hostages to the court of the Ottoman Sultan Murad II. For 6 years, Vlad remained a captive, immersed in Turkish language and customs. But unlike his brother Radu, who reportedly adapted to life in the Sultan's harem and even converted to Islam, Vlad developed an incandescent hatred for the Turks and for anyone who compromised with them, including, it seems, his own brother. During his captivity, Vlad was exposed to the brutal realities of Ottoman power, witnessing their methods of torture and execution, including the grisly practice of impalement. Contrary to popular belief, Vlad did not invent impalement. It was an ancient method of execution practiced in various cultures. However, he elevated it to new levels of horrifying sophistication and terror, making it his signature tool of psychological warfare. Under his supervision, condemned individuals were impaled so that the sharpened stake, often greased, entered through the anus or genitals and slowly emerged near the shoulder or mouth, carefully avoiding vital organs. This gruesome precision ensured the agony could be prolonged for hours or even days, often in public view. When Vlad finally managed to return to Wallachia, he discovered a realm in chaos. His father had been assassinated, likely by Wallachian boyars nobles who resented his shifting allegiances. His older brother, Mircea, had been captured, blinded, and buried alive by these same treacherous boyars. This second, profound trauma intensified Vlad's already simmering desire for vengeance and instilled in him a deep, almost pathological distrust of the Wallachian nobility. In 1456, after several failed attempts and intense maneuvering, Vlad finally seized power as the Prince of Wallachia. His first chilling act upon consolidating his authority was a calculated display of retribution. He invited hundreds of boyar nobles and their families, including those he suspected of betraying his father and brother, to an elaborate Easter feast. During the banquet, Vlad abruptly questioned the assembled nobles. "How many princes have ruled this land during your lives?" When they nervously replied that they had served many different rulers, Vlad ordered the hall locked. Guards then dragged the older, more prominent guests outside, where they were immediately impaled. The younger, healthier nobles and their families were forced into a brutal 80-kilometer, 50-mile march to the ruins of Poenari Castle, a strategic fortress in the Carpathian Mountains. There, they were forced to work as slaves, laboring until death to rebuild and reinforce the dilapidated stronghold, which would become Vlad's favorite, almost impregnable residence. This horrific episode perfectly exemplifies Vlad's method, eliminating his enemies not only with brute force but with meticulously planned, symbolic acts designed to inspire maximum terror and absolute obedience. The subsequent years of Vlad's reign were defined by constant, relentless military campaigns against the expansionist Ottoman Empire and by an unprecedented, brutal regime of internal terror. His cruelty knew no bounds, transcending age, gender, or social class. Contemporary accounts, often documented in German pamphlets that spread across Europe, described the prince ordering the execution of women and children with the same cold detachment he applied to enemy soldiers. A particularly disturbing story recounts how, when Ottoman ambassadors refused to remove their turbans in his presence, citing religious custom, Vlad ordered their turbans nailed directly to their heads. Beyond impalement, Vlad utilized an arsenal of gruesome tortures. One notorious method was the cauldron. Victims were partially submerged in a large vessel of boiling water, sometimes mixed with other corrosive liquids. The fire beneath was carefully controlled, ensuring the condemned would cook slowly, starting with their lower limbs. Some chilling accounts claim Vlad would calmly dine nearby, occasionally dipping his bread into the human broth. Another favored technique was the wheel, where the victim's limbs were tied to a large wooden wheel that rotated slowly, while executioners methodically broke every bone in the body with heavy iron hammers. Unlike the common medieval practice of killing the victim after torture, Vlad preferred to leave the broken bodies exposed in public squares for days, serving as a ghastly, living warning to the populace. For thieves and minor criminals, Vlad devised his own system of draconian justice. In a theatrical demonstration of his supposed incorruptibility, he placed a valuable gold cup in a public square in Targovishte, his capital. The cup remained untouched throughout his reign, not out of respect for the law, but from the paralyzing terror his name inspired. Anyone audacious enough to steal it would face a horrifying punishment, flaying or skinning alive, where all the skin of the body was removed in one piece, from head to foot, while the victim was still conscious. Vlad's brutality extended beyond physical executions. His sadistic imagination also devised psychologically devastating tortures. On one occasion, he ordered hundreds of beggars and vagabonds to be gathered in a large barn, promising them a lavish feast. When they were all drunk and satiated, Vlad, with feigned benevolence, asked if they wished to be freed from their misery and poverty. Upon receiving an enthusiastic response, he ordered the barn doors locked and set the structure on fire, burning all its occupants alive. For women accused of adultery or other immoralities, Vlad reserved specific, brutal punishments. His preferred method was often genital mutilation, where the reproductive organs were removed and the victim left to bleed to death. Unwed mothers were frequently subjected to a specific variation of impalement: the vertical stake, where the stake was positioned to pierce directly through the belly, also killing the fetus if the woman was pregnant. The apex of Vlad's documented cruelty occurred during his momentous campaign against the Turks, in 1462. After a decisive victory against the forces of Sultan Mehmed II, the Conqueror, the very Sultan who had conquered Constantinople, Vlad orchestrated his infamous forest of stakes outside the city of Targovishte. This horrifying tableau comprised over 20,000 impaled Turkish prisoners and rebellious Wallachians, representing the largest act of mass execution recorded until that time. When the Ottoman army arrived and encountered this macabre vision, Mehmed II, a hardened conqueror, was reportedly so horrified that he withdrew his troops, allegedly declaring, "I cannot take the throne of a man who does such extraordinary things." Thinking Vlad's policies were a bit prickly. You're not alone. Subscribe now. Despite, or perhaps precisely because of, his unparalleled brutality, Vlad achieved remarkable feats during his relatively short reign. He ruthlessly strengthened central authority, systematically eliminated much of the entrenched corruption among the boyar nobility, and, crucially, maintained Wallachia's precarious independence against immense pressure from both the formidable Ottoman Empire and the ambitious Kingdom of Hungary. For the common peasant who obeyed his draconian laws and did not cross his path, Vlad could paradoxically be seen as a surprisingly just, albeit terrifying, ruler. German pamphlets of the time, though generally hostile and sensationalizing his cruelty, grudgingly admitted that during his government, one could leave bags of gold on the roads of Wallachia without anyone daring to touch them, a testament to the absolute order enforced by fear. Vlad's reign of terror abruptly ended in 1462 when he was captured by the Hungarians under King Matthias Corvinus, who perhaps feared Vlad's growing power or sought to appease the Ottomans. He remained imprisoned for over a decade. After more than 10 years of captivity, he briefly managed to regain power in 1476, only to be assassinated under mysterious circumstances a few months later, likely by disgruntled Wallachian boyars or Ottoman agents. His head was subsequently sent to Constantinople, where Sultan Mehmed II reportedly had it displayed, ironically, impaled on a stakia fittingly macabre end for the impaler. 4 centuries after his death, Vlad's chilling name would resurface in popular culture through Bram Stoker's seminal novel Dracula, published in 1897. Although the fictional vampire shares little with the historical prince beyond the name and a loose connection to Transylvania, the aura of terror and inhumanity that Vlad cultivated still profoundly permeates our perception of the literary character. What makes Vlad Tepes such a fascinating and disturbing figure is not merely the sheer scale of his documented atrocities, but the stark contrast between his extreme brutality and his undeniable effectiveness as a ruler. In a perverse sense, his reign of terror worked. He successfully defended his small principality against the immensely powerful Ottoman Empire and established an internal order that, despite its unimaginable human cost, brought a certain grim stability to the region. Vlad's story confronts us with uncomfortable questions about power, justice, and the true cost of social order. For modern Romanians, he remains an ambivalent figure. A bloodthirsty tyrant, yes, but also a national hero who, in their eyes, bravely defended Christianity against an encroaching Islamic invasion. In the words of the renowned Romanian historian Nicolae Iorga, Vlad was cruel, but his cruelty had a purpose. Today, more than 500 years after his death, the haunting ruins of Poenari Castle still stand above the Argeș River, a silent, weathered reminder of the chilling fragility of the boundaries between justice and barbarism, between the visionary ruler and the psychopathic tyrant. The enduring legacy of Vlad the Impaler resides precisely in this terrifying ambiguity, a man whose actions exceeded all conventional limits of humanity, but which paradoxically, in the minds of some, justified themselves as grimly necessary to protect that very humanity against even greater threats. Don't let history's most brutal tales get lost. Subscribe for more stories that cut deep into the past.